Hey everybody, welcome to the Voiceover booth. My name is Josh Risser, and I'm going to give you a behind-the-scenes peek at my workflow when it comes to recording long-form narration. Today, we're going to do that using a short story from Ambrose Bierce. And when I say short, I mean short. I think the word count came out to 540-some characters. No, words. Word count, not character count. It's like 3,000 some characters. But it's nice and short because I don't exactly know what you're all looking for out there. I get a lot of emails and a lot of questions and comments because you might know me from another YouTube channel where I'm a faceless narrator, but I can't answer all those emails and all those questions all the time. What I would like to do is start putting together some of these videos that gives you a glimpse into how I work and maybe help answer some of the questions. And just because behind the scenes videos are awesome, frankly, they're like my favorite thing when it comes to stuff to watch. Behind the scenes music, behind the scenes voiceover, how it's made. You know, I do want to see how the sausage is made. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the script. You might see me looking over here because that is where my script monitor is. Yeah, so I'm not used to being on camera. This is going to be interesting. So this is a short story by Ambrose Bierce. Very short story. Like I said, 500 and some words. It's still going to be a few minutes of finished audio here. Nice and short. There's a little bit of a twist at the end. The story is John Mortonson's funeral. So let's go ahead and pop open my DAW. I am a fan of Reaper. Just been using it forever. I've used it to record music, and I've used it to record like a band. That is music. And now I use it to record voiceover just because I'm used to it. So I'm actually going to throw on my headphones too so I can hear myself if I have to do any edits. And what I'm going to do is just work through this. And as I make edits, if I have anything to share, I'll let you know and we'll talk through it. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So every one of these stories, if you're going to do a book, like an audio book, the way you start it is speaking the title, the author's name, and then your name. So it'd be John Mortonson's Funeral by Ambrose Bierce, narrated by Josh Risser. But you would say it in your best voiceover audiobook voice, right? We're not messing around here. We're not here just talking. We're not talking. We have voiceover voice, right? So let's see here. I'm going to hit record, and we'll start rolling. I'll make sure it's rolling. Rule number 1, always be recording when you think you're recording. Okay. John Mortonson's Funeral by Ambrose Bierce, narrated by Josh Risser. I don't know if I like that, but I'm going to listen. Remember, we are our own worst critic. So, let's see here. John Mortonson's Funeral by Ambrose Bierce, narrated by Josh Risser. Yeah, we're our own worst critic, because that sounded fine. As soon as you hear things back, it sounds fine. Something to remember about voiceover narration that I always notice is that you never get out the same amount of energy that you feel like you put in. So I'm going to set this to just half a second, maybe. We'll do a full second at the top. That's all right. And then we will start off the narration here. So John Mortonson was dead. His lines in The Tragedy Man had all been spoken, and he had left the stage. The body rested in a fine mahogany coffin fitted with a plate of glass. All arrangements for the funeral had been so well attended to that had the deceased known, he would doubtless... That didn't sound great. The cool thing about Reaper is I can do punch and roll, where I just punch right back in. I'm going to listen to this line here. All arrangements for the funeral had been so well attended to that... I just got a full line here. So we'll start about right where this one runs. And I'm going to punch and roll, which means it's going to play back the stuff before. I can kind of get the vibe of it and then come in when I need to come in. So I might start parroting myself just be aware. Rested in a fine mahogany coffin. Also forgot my spot in the script. Where are we at? All right, find the words. Mahogany coffin. There we go. All arrangements. That's where we're starting. So, rested in a fine mahogany coffin fitted with a plate of glass. All arrangements for the funeral had been so well attended to that had the deceased known, he would doubtless have approved. The face, as it showed under the glass, was not disagreeable to look upon. It bore a faint smile, and as the death had been painless, had not been distorted beyond the repairing power of the undertaker. At 2:00 of the afternoon, the friends were to assemble to pay their last tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. The surviving members of the family came. You know what? I'm thinking about this here. Ambrose Bierce, he writes like dark, well, not all dark comedy, but he writes some comedy. This is supposed to be sort of funny, and I don't feel like doubtless approved. That's not really a joke. All arrangements for the funeral so well attended to. That's not really a joke. But the next one, the next one. 2:00 in the afternoon, the friends were to assemble to pay their last tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. There needs to be something in that. Let's listen back how I said it. The friends were to assemble to pay their last tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. No, I think it needs to hit that need. Needs to hit the need just a little bit more. So I think that'll sell the line a little bit better. Unless had not been distorted beyond the repairing power of the undertaker. At 2:00 of the afternoon, the friends were to assemble to pay their last tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. The surviving So just punch back in here. Tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. The surviving members of the family came severally. Weird mouth click in that one. And also came severally every few minutes. So it's like a bunch of them coming every few minutes. Guessing that's what that means. Tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. The surviving members of the family came severally every few minutes to the casket. No beat there. Should be a beat before and. So we'll connect to the casket back. Tribute of respect to one who had no further need of friends and respect. The surviving members of the family came severally every few minutes to the casket and wept above the placid features beneath the glass. This did them no good. It did John. This is another joke. It did them no good. It did no good to John Mortonson. Oh, yeah. All right. I like it. I like this line. This is a funny one. All right. It's to the casket and wept above the placid features beneath the glass. This did them no good. It did no good to John Mortonson. But in the presence of death, reason and philosophy are silent. As the hour of 2 approached, the friends began to arrive, and after offering such consolation to the stricken relatives as the proprieties of the occasion required. I'll just top that sentence off again. Okay. As the hour of 2 approached, the friends began to arrive. And after offering such consolation to the stricken relatives as the proprieties of the occasion required, solemnly seated themselves about the room with an augmented consciousness of their importance in the scheme funeral. Let's see. With an augmented consciousness of their importance in the scheme funeral. All right, let's just recut that, just because I don't know if I like where the emphasis was. I'm going to take it from the top here, starting at as. As the right yeah. But in the presence of death, reason and philosophy are silent. As the hour of 2 approached, the friends began to arrive, and after offering such consolation to the stricken relatives as the proprieties of the occasion required, solemnly seated themselves. Proprieties of the occasion required. All right. Let's go right back to solemnly seated themselves. That's not a tongue twister at all. To the stricken relatives as the proprieties of the occasion required. Solemnly seated themselves. Nice. To the stricken relatives as the proprieties of the occasion required. Solemnly seated themselves about the room with an augmented consciousness of their importance in the scheme funeral. Then the minister came, and in that overshadowing presence the lesser lights went into eclipse. His entrance was followed by that of the widow, whose lamentations filled the room. She approached the casket, and after leaning her face against the cold glass for a moment, was gently led to a seat near her daughter. Mournfully and low the man of God began his eulogy of the dead, and his doleful voice mingled with the sobbing which it... All right, another good joke here. Oh man. Hopefully you think these are jokes. They are jokes. It's really dry. Where are we at here? So mournfully and... All right, mournfully and low. We'll start there. We'll see if I can land this one. Old glass for a moment, was gently led to a seat near her daughter. Mournfully and low, the man of God began his eulogy of the dead, and his doleful voice mingled with the sobbing, which it was its purpose to stimulate and sustain. That's funny. So it's basically saying the eulogy's whole point is just to make people cry and keep them crying. Let's keep going. And his doleful... Mournfully and low, the man of God began his eulogy of the dead, and his doleful voice mingled with the sobbing which it was its purpose to Man. Roundabout way of saying this, though. Let's see. Mournfully... Let's start over on mournfully here. Old glass for a moment was gently led to a seat near her daughter. Mournfully and low, the man of God began his eulogy of the dead, and his doleful voice mingled with the sobbing which it was its purpose to stimulate and sustain, rose and fell, seemed to come and go, like the sound of a sullen sea. The gloomy day grew darker as he spoke. A curtain of cloud underspread the sky, and a few drops of rain fell audibly. It seemed as if all nature were weeping for John Mortonson. When the minister had finished his eulogy with prayer, comma, a hymn was sung. So sometimes there's no comma, and you just got to add one. It's called a beat. Got to get a beat in there. It seemed as if all nature were weeping for John Mortonson. When the minister had finished his eulogy with prayer, a hymn was sung, and the pallbearers took their places beside the bier. As the last notes of the hymn died away, the widow ran to the coffin, cast herself upon it, and sobbed hysterically. Gradually, however, she yielded to dissuasion, becoming more composed, and as the minister was in the act of leading her away, her eyes sought the face of the dead beneath the glass. She threw up her arms, and with a shriek fell backward insensible. The mourners sprang forward to the coffin, the friends followed, and as the clock on the mantel solemnly struck 3, all were staring down upon the face of John Mortonson, deceased. They turned away, sick and faint. One man, trying in his terror to escape the awful sight, stumbled against the coffin so heavily... Oh, no. That's got to be connected. One man, trying in his terror. So we got a parenthetical here, not what the guy was doing. So it's like, trying in his terror to escape the awful sight, stumbled against the coffin. So we'll go back. Also, we had a shift, suddenly. A paragraph ago, she threw up her arms with a shriek. So the lady looks into the coffin again, one last glance at her beloved deceased husband, and she freaks out and falls over, and everyone else starts freaking out. So we had a shift, and so you need to shift your tone. Hopefully you picked up a little bit of speed, maybe a little increase in volume and tension in my voice to kind of relay that, hey, something is happening here. So let's see where we're at. All were staring down upon the face of John Mortonson, deceased. Deceased is kind of a title. I don't know if that landed so well. All were let's jump back here. Let's go back here. The mourners sprang forward. Let's go back here. Let's really try to pick up that energy a little bit more. She threw up her arms, and with a shriek fell backward insensible. The mourners sprang forward to the coffin. The friends followed, and as the clock on the mantel solemnly struck 3. Again, Ambrose, why are you putting these S's in here? The mourners sprang forward to the coffin. The friends followed. And as the clock on the mantel solemnly struck 3, all were staring down upon the face of John Mortonson, deceased. They turned away, sick and faint. One man trying... faster, more energy right there. because now we're building into what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I didn't finish this yet. All were staring down upon the face of John Mortonson, deceased. They turned away, sick and faint. One man, trying in his terror to escape the awful sight, stumbled against the coffin so heavily as to knock away one of its frail supports. The coffin fell to the floor. The glass was shattered to bits by the concussion. From the opening crawled John Mortonson's cat, which lazily leapt to the floor, sat up, tranquilly wiped its crimson muzzle with a forepaw, then walked with dignity from the room. That is such a cat thing to do. Eat your owner. That's not part of the story. I'm going to delete that. That is such... All right, so we finished. That was quick, but there's a lot happening here. It's all narration. There's no dialogue, so we don't have to worry about that. But we had some turns, and we had some energy changes. And if you notice, right before... So let's go back a little bit. We had the tension where she threw up her arms. We're starting to build that tension. And then as we get to the final payoff, what's actually happening, coffin falls to the floor. And that is where I kind of pulled back. And the viewer's like, get to the point, or the listener, get to the point, man. That's kind of what you want. You want that tension to build. And just when they think there's going to be a little release, you can add a little more tension, especially if the release is right there. It's kind of like music, if you know a little bit about tension and release in music. And so thinking about that kind of stuff, like how would this happen if it were shot or if it were filmed and you could see that? But that's all for now. We finished this up. I will just go back and edit some of the maybe louder breaths, if there were any, double check that I said everything right. And then I'll be, just kicking it out as a WAV file, and submitting it wherever it would need to go if this were actually an audiobook. Since it's not, I'm just going to drop this finished narration story also on my channel. So check out the channel and subscribe to that so you can get notified when the finished video is out there, and you can use it as a sleep story or something, or maybe as a reminder not to get a cat because they'll eat your face when you're dead. And with that, thanks for joining me, and let me know if this was interesting. Drop something in the comments and let me know what you want to know, and maybe we can go deeper into something more specific.